The Body Keeps the Score, Bessel van der Kolk. What a great name for a human being and for a book as well. Also a good name for the book. Fits. This has been such a good book. Such a good book. Man, I learned so much from this one. Not necessarily from the book itself, but from reading it, from interacting with it. I guess that's every book, right? When you read a book, essentially, at least these, the more psychological, self-help, self-development kind of books, it's you having a conversation with the book, right? It's not something you necessarily read in the book that blows your mind apart, but something could make you think and connect dots in your past, in your history, in your head, that are going to do plenty for you, right? And that's exactly what happened to me. I read the book. It forced me to go into certain things in my past, certain patterns in my present, and realize that, man, there's plenty I need to work on. It's been good. It's been very eye-opening. I really highly recommend it, and you'll probably see why throughout this video. Why did I get to this book to begin with? So I had it on my shelf already. I was very curious about it. It's a book about trauma, yet it's one of the best-selling books of our times. And that's been kind of weird for me. You know, I'm super curious about people, and I've been thinking, man, if this is like number 3 on Amazon or something, it's been at least for a long time, yet it's a book about trauma. How common is it? Is everyone sick? Does everyone has something? Has everyone been through a traumatic experience? Everyone been to war? Every reader has been to war or has been abused as a child? Got me curious, and so I wanted to get the book. Also, it speaks about your body. It speaks about how certain things manifest physically. That's been very interesting for me too. I have been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome now for about a decade. It's been probably the most, heavy experience of my life. It's been most life-shifting, heavy experience of my life. And so I got very curious and passionate about understanding your body and how you work and how you function and whatnot, right? I'm a personal trainer right now, and I play with food 24/7. I got very curious about how the body works. And so it's been also interesting to me. And so it's been sitting on my shelf for a while. I am after a very recent breakup, a month now or so, about a month. And throughout this whole last month, it's really been emphasized that I am a little bit fucked. a tad fucked. I have some triggers, for sure, right? And when I get triggered, I don't get angry, I don't get into a rage or something like that, but I get very distant, I get disconnected completely. So imagine you are my partner. Nice to meet you. And you say something that makes me feel like you think I'm lazy maybe, or cheap or something like that. Lazy is probably the biggest one. I can get triggered very quickly and feel like I barely know you. If we're hugging, if we're cuddling in bed now, I'll suddenly remove my arm. I'll suddenly think about going and playing on the computer. That can last for ages. That can last for a long time. That can last for 2, 3, 4 days. Depends on how things go. I don't understand where this comes from. Not really. Not fully. Not even after reading the book. But following that, I really wanted to see, okay, let's see what's the source of that. Or maybe I've been through something. It's, it sounds like something that will happen after trauma. If I'm this sensitive to something probably happened in the past that makes me, be so tense and sensitive in the present. And so I want to go and dig into that. My ex also made a really good job. My ex also made a really good job, putting her finger on how kind of fucked I was at that point, and how for at least the last month of the relationship I've been, haunted by my past and my sickness and my everything. And so really I left the relationship very insecure, feeling like I need to go fix myself. Not a good place to be in, but made me read a phenomenal book and improve myself and get out of it. So not get out of the trauma or whatever, but get out of the state of fixing. And so that's great for it. It's been a good book. Let's get into the 3 points that helped me the most. So first thing first, I thought I knew what trauma was. So I thought trauma was car crash, abuse, war, something huge that happens that shatters your brain and, you know, and destroys you mentally. And so you get sick from how overwhelming the experience was. And to a certain degree, that's exactly what it is. But there are different types of trauma and different types of scars that can be left after different kinds of traumatic experiences. Trauma is what happens in your brain. It's the way you, brain and body and everything. That's the point of the book, right? But the way you change after a shattering experience. That experience, though, is not the trauma. So let's say you go through a car crash. The car crash is not the trauma, but you being in the car and being, and seeing how close you were to death, and maybe seeing someone else going through some suffering, and maybe it's the transition from feeling safe to feeling, like your life is just about to end. Something is so mind-breaking, mind-shattering, that your whole body as an entity has to shift itself in order to protect itself, change certain mechanisms in order to not die in the future, to not, it freaks out and it changes its behavior. And so understanding that trauma is not the event, but the way your brain was shattered, right? The way your vision of the world was shattered, kind of shifted the way I was thinking about this. I've never thought about my sickness as trauma, but of course it's been an uncomfortable experience in the worst years of my life and whatnot, but it's not like I've been raped, right? And so I've never put it in the same category, which I guess it's not exactly. But being sick for years, undiagnosed, with everyone telling you you're full of shit, pretty much, that's a pretty brain-shattering experience, right? Imagine being good at stuff. I've been playing water polo and I've been in the national team for my age, right? For my age group. So I've been pretty good. That's been my thing. I was pretty smart. People used to tell me I'm going to be a scientist and all that. Like, you're on it, right? You have friends, you go visit them, you meet them, everything happens. And then one day, suddenly you can't really do that anymore because, I don't know, you don't function. And you feel like you don't function, but nobody sees it. You can't really see me not functioning. You can't diagnose me with anything because you can't see it in a blood test either. And so nobody believes you, You end up being at home playing computer games, and that's about it. You give up on pretty much everything else you do. And you try to explain to people that it's because you can't do anything else. But what they see you as lazy, you don't sleep enough. Of course you feel like that if you play on the computer the whole day. Did you try doing some physical activity? Tough times. It's been years until I was actually diagnosed with something, even though the diagnosis didn't do that much. So think of it this way. After I was already diagnosed, I went to a doctor with my mom, for instance. And you walk in and you tell the doctor, yo, it's been, I think, stomach, something. You go to the doctor and you tell them, yo, I have chronic fatigue syndrome. And he looks at me and goes, first of all, that's something you tell people that don't have anything. Okay, so maybe you have something else. And both me and my mom just go, another one. It breaks you, right? It's really tough. It's really tough. People don't believe you. People think you're lazy. People think you're cheap. People think you're all of those things purely because you're incapable of doing things. You know that, but only you know that. Nobody else truly believes you because they don't experience it either. And so at some point, you kind of stop believing yourself as well. And this is a mind-shifting event, these few years. It's not trauma in the way we thought of it, but it's big. And I know I haven't experienced it for sure. And so that shifted the whole way I was thinking of trauma. When I walk outside right now and I look at people and I speak to people, I can see that everybody has, traces of something. What we do today is only based on what we experienced in the past. And now I can think of, let's say, painful, brain-shattering patterns as a mind, as a, you know, human shaping thing, more than simply, you know, what's the worst experience you've been through, right? That's been huge for me. That's been huge both for the acceptance of my own process, what I've been through, but also understanding other people. I feel like I can genuinely see other people in a much more clear, respectful, understanding, compassionate manner. And that's been huge for me. Number 2, the way I understand it, and I might be wrong, right? Again, it's not me summarizing the book, but telling you what I got from it, what I understood from it. The way I understood it, Bessel's approach to dealing with trauma goes multiple directions at the same time. The first one is the classic talk therapy, processing, going through your memories, which is very important. I realized only recently that I have so many repressed memories. I don't remember so many things. And it's so selective, you know, I can remember a day, the whole day, but then I cannot remember a single experience in that day. And when I hear about it from someone else, I can start crying immediately while still not remembering it. I'm definitely haunted by something, right? And so the first thing is processing. You have to go find your memories carefully, right? Carefully, because they can re-traumatize you, but you have to go and find them carefully and deal with them. Talk therapy, you and yourself, whatever, many ways to attack that. And the second thing, that's I guess the biggest point, that's what, you know, what most of us are getting from the book. The main argument in the book is that you also have to traumatize the trauma, kind of. So if I got sick in the past, chronic fatigue syndrome, and I felt like I lost complete control over my body, maybe what I need to do now is gain control over my body in certain ways that prove me that I can do it, you know? So my trauma, it still lives within me. And if I can traumatize it, kind of like back to normal, it wouldn't be back, right? We're only going forward, and I'm going to be haunted by the things I've been through always. Haunted, you know, blessed, whatever, call it however you want. But you find your trauma, you find the thing that stops you, you find the thing that changed, right? The sensor that shifted now in order for you to survive, right? That's how your body thinks of it. So you find the thing that's been traumatized and you kind of re-traumatize it in a different way to show it, to regain control, to regain safety, right? And so that you can do in many ways. You know, someone who lost control over their body can go and do yoga, for instance. He speaks about that a lot in there. He speaks about, you know, singing and going and doing communal, like chanting and stuff. There's plenty of different super cool stuff in the book. But the main thing is, look, talking about it is one thing, and it's big. It's important. You need to go find your memories. You need to see what you feel about them, and you need to give them the attention they deserve. But that's not everything. That's not everything. You also need to prove your body in the same way it got physically changed from the experience, neurologically, physiologically. The same way you got changed from the experience, you need to change yourself back. You don't need to do anything, but it's probably going to be good for you. So, second thing I got from this, go deal with your past. Go dig in your brain and find the base of all of this, and the memories that are still giving you strong emotions, that are still very, charged. But with that, go and re-traumatize your trauma. Show it that you can actually do the things it thinks you can't. And that changes from one person to another. Third point, and which kind of sits, kind of leans on the previous ones, is how I took it personally. So how that relates to me. So I think two things happened. First of all, I think something about me being firstborn, being the first grandchildren in the family and grandchild in the family. I think I had a lot of eyes on me. There was I think I felt a lot of pressure to perform. And I think I was good at things, really. And I felt like because I was good at things, my family was, happy with me, proud of me, whatever. I put a lot of emphasis on it, and I was really good at the things I was good at. At the same time, I think I was a very sensitive person. So I was I was sensitive ever since I was a kid. I remember hearing a story from my parents about how when I was, I don't know, 1, 2 years old, they got me to the beach to the first time, and I stepped on the sand and I started like, crying in because it was so uncomfortable for me, like the sensation of sand. I'm a sensitive human being. But that combined with me, the whole family, we kind of have a fear of diseases a little bit. I think made me, quite fearful of being ill. When I was pretty young as well, 7 years old or something, my mom got cancer, and she healed. She recovered from it. But I think this period also made me pretty scared. I think we were probably sure that she's not gonna live, and something about that freaked us out as well. Another thing I don't remember whatsoever, right? That's a whole period I can't even recall, so I don't even know. But I assume it had a pretty big impact on me, being a kid, asking your mom if she's going to die, right? That's pretty heavy. And so I think I became very charged and scared of sickness and losing control over my body. When I was playing water polo, I think when I was 14 years old or something, in the middle of a training camp, I don't know what happened. I don't know if I got sunburned, if I got dehydrated, if I got a virus. I have no clue, but I completely lost it. After a few hours of like vomiting and, and just feeling absolutely horrible, I started like fainting and collapsing and tingling in my like hands and face and whatever. It's been a bad experience, right? And that started everything. From there on, I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I think something about this whole losing control, both about yourself physically, getting sick, maybe whatever, what's going to happen to me, but then also losing control of all these things that I was thinking, oh, I'm good at this. This is the thing that tells the world who I am. This is the reason people are proud of me and love me. You lose all of that, but nobody believes your reasoning. That was probably pretty mind-shattering for my younger self. And so right now, when I look at it, I think of two things. I think, first of all, the physical aspect. I need to feel like I gain control over my body again. That's very important for me. But I've been on it for a while now, I think, unconsciously. So I think it's not for nothing that I became a personal trainer. And my ex used to make fun of me every night. I would come and I'd be like, oh, what is this weird itch? And what do I feel here in my stomach? That's a new sensation. My pinky feels kind of odd today. She would laugh at me every time. And I go like, wow, what do you want? Like, I'm just doing my my checkup. I think I became very in tune with my body with time, automatically. So I think that kind of happened. The second part though, the whole people, the whole proud part, the whole you should do great things. I think that one I still didn't figure out completely, and I need to find it. So here's what I think happened. I think mind chattery thingy, super heavy. Nobody believes you. You're collapsing and losing control over everything. All the things you think you have to have control over. Everything collapses at the same time, and I think it was too overwhelming for me emotionally. And so what you do when things are too overwhelming, you have to deal with them one way or another, right? And so to not be overwhelmed with it, I think I shoved it in a corner. I made sure now that I never experience these things. And so anytime now I feel, let's say, attacked, right? Let's go back to my ex. If she would doubt my reasoning, if she would think I'm lazy, for me, that's her thinking, it's not because you have your reasons. It's not because you're, sick or you don't like something or you're uncomfortable. It's not because you have your reasons not to do something. The reason you don't do something is because you're lazy. It's because you just don't push yourself. You just don't, And that breaks me. It's hurtful with everyone, but really hurtful with your partner. And she might not even say it, right? She might not even think it. And I would interpret it as her thinking I'm lazy. But it would break me from within, and I would dissociate completely. I would just not feel anything. And that can last for a long time. And so What I want to do now, what I think I need to do now is reconnect with these parts. I need to reconnect with the parts that feel, with the parts that I've hidden, and I don't really know how to do that. And I have some things I want to do now. I have some approaches. The first way I want to attack this is with this concept of internal family system, IFS. It's the next book I'm reading, this one over there. And it's really good, so expect a good, a great book review in a week or two. But mostly it's about finding your different inner voices, right? So maybe I've had well, definitely here's a good example. My achieving self, right? So I am full of many different me's, and my achieving self has been shunned. I threw him in a corner or something because, you know, I got sick and I couldn't achieve anything. Suddenly at some point it was like, look, you're average at most. If you want to be here, you're going to crash. Something bad is going to happen. So don't even try. And so this guy, you know, this Noam has been shoved somewhere else and I don't know where he is. Can't find him. So hopefully with the help of this book, I'm going to see where I can find him, right? That's the first thing I'm going to do. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and act and feel the things I can't act and feel, right? So I'm going to try and traumatize my trauma a little bit. And that goes in multiple directions, but I think the biggest one, the example that made most sense to me was actually acting. So like theater. I wouldn't necessarily think of it as theater, but, you know, getting into character, doing something that's not real, that's not truth, right? Acting out a character that's not necessarily my day-to-day self. That scares me a ton. I'm so scared of not being honest, of not being completely transparent. I think also because of it, you know, if I have not been transparent in the past, could I really have been lying to everyone? Have I not been sick? And so I think I made a commitment to myself to be always truthful, always tell everyone what you think, exactly what you feel, what you think. And so now I can't even, I can't go against it. And so I think that's a big one. I think I'll have to start pulling characters. I'll have to start telling stories and doing things that are not necessarily real. And I think that'll connect me to some of my inner demons. Hopefully. It's been such a good book. I really highly recommend it. And hopefully, I'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by.